Hello. Welcome to We Are Developers, and welcome to We Are Developers Live, which we normally do at home, and we normally do every Wednesday live. So I hope you appreciate that for this time we're wearing trousers, and we washed for the occasion, and we actually came here. I want to thank all of you already for coming, and I hope that this first day is going to give you a bit of an idea what we're going to do in the next few days. Normally it's weird that we're standing in front of the screen where we're going to show things, but we're going to sort it all out. You're going to be seeing me on the main stage as well for the next 2 days, and you're going to see us in between talks in embarrassing videos as well. So we're actually used to that. It's going to be fine. To get a bit of the lay of the land, who here came from outside of Berlin?
Okay, pretty good.
Who here is from Berlin or in Berlin? Cool. Isn't it amazing that it takes longer for us to get here than to get outside the city now with all the construction going on over there? It's just pretty mental what's happening at the moment. Now, if you haven't seen We Are Developers Live yet, it's Daniel and me. I'm Chris Heilman. I'm the VP of Developer Relations for We Are Developers. And Daniel is?
I'm Daniel Cranny, and I'm a developer advocate at We Are Developers. And we've got a guest. I'll let you do the introductions, Chris, but we've got a fabulous guest with us today.
I thought we'd make him look awkward for another 10 minutes and not just mention him and say, like, he's not supposed to be on stage here. We just get them there.
I just tagged along.
Yeah. So every We Are Developers Live, we just go through a lot of links that we found that couldn't get into the newsletter. We do a newsletter every Friday, 150,000 subscribers, which is always quite fun when you press the button and you're like, did I do everything right in that email? And when we don't have time for links in the email or no space, then we're actually starting collecting them, and we do this live show where we're going to talk about different resources, and we bring interesting guests in to actually talk about what they do and how they actually work and what they do. As we couldn't find interesting guests this time, we got Graham. And so Graham, what do you do and who are you?
Hi everyone. So my name's Graham. I'm from a company called SFG20. I'm head of accessibility. There's not many of us about. And yeah, I just generally show up to things randomly and just poke my nose in and just...
And you're not from Berlin, right?
As you can probably tell from my accent, no, I'm from the UK.
We met in Manchester for the first time in person, and you're one of those people when you see your avatar online and you see you're in real life, you're like, okay, what happened? But I mean, but you're
right back at you.
I tried to find your real name, and it's always GrahamTheDev and everything in social media. Don't you want your real name to be?
No, I'm International Man of Mystery.
Okay.
Even on LinkedIn, I'm Graham R. So you have to try and guess my last name.
Okay, that's pretty okay. Fair enough. So I don't know how we get the things on the monitor here. Is that something we need to switch, or what's going on there? Yay!
There we go.
So every week we go through just a few things, a few resources that we're going to talk about. But I mean, let's start with the accessibility bit to get you involved as fast as possible. I think one thing I found interesting is that there is always this need to get people excited about accessibility. And I found this accessibility for all community is a rather new one, but rather engaging one. So what do you think about what can we do better to make accessibility more cool and not like, oh, I need to do it before I send out my website?
I think the answer is you've got to get the CEOs involved. The problem is that a lot of devs, we want to do accessibility. It's actually really interesting as a dev because it puts constraints on what you're doing and makes you think and makes you innovate. The problem is it's got to come from the top down. So I think the way to get it in is to get some CEOs and CTOs more excited about accessibility, and then it'll just flow. Because honestly, once you get into it, I fell into accessibility. I just got interested by the challenge and by the fact that there's so many interesting things and interesting ways that people interact with the internet that I fell in love with it once someone introduced me to it. I think that's the key. It's awareness, and it's getting some people to actually realize there's a lot of money out there because 1 in 6 people's disabled.
I always felt like accessibility as a developer is kind of skunk work. You actually have to get it in if you care about it, because nobody's going to ask you until the end of the project when it comes to legal compliance. But if you really want to do it, you just do it, and there is no loss not doing it. But it seems like it's something we have to sneak in all the time.
It's the biggest problem because it becomes a compliance issue rather than something built in. So because it's then, you do it at the end, it costs you a lot of money, costs you a lot of time, it becomes the pain. Whereas if you build it in from the start and your designer's thinking about it and you're discussing it when you're actually designing components and layouts and workflows, it adds very little, but generally improves the UX massively because a lot of it makes things easier to use.
I mean, Dan, you got into it sideways because I keep pushing you to think about accessibility. Like, what are the things that you found hardest to get your head around?
I think for me, I'm very much a front-end thinker, so I'm very visual. And you have some basics around, color contrast that you usually are going to do because it's best for your design, but it's also good for accessibility reasons. And I think for me, it was learning that they're actually two sides of the same coin, that usually something that is designed well will be accessible. And they're not fighting against each other, they're actually working with each other. And I think that took me a long time to realize. Because I think that you can, as a designer, you can make some really bad decisions when it comes to accessibility. And then when somebody tells you to change it, you say, but I don't want to, I like how it looks. And that really hit the nail on the head. It's you like how it looks, but everybody else is going to find difficulty actually navigating your website, using your application, if you've just thought about your own preferences. So that's it for me, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting how when every year the Web A Million is being released, basically the most trafficked websites out there, and they actually show all the problems, accessibility problems in those sites. And for 10 years running, it's been the same issues, and it's very simple issues that could get fixed. It's always like links that don't have any text in them, which probably is an SVG icon in there without a title. Then it's basically the contrast of color, foreground and background color, because light gray on lighter gray looks gorgeous. And I think a lot of these things are actually built into browsers to test already, but there is every year or every 5 years there's a new design paradigm that comes around that's completely atrocious. One of them was like light gray text on light gray background, and now of course we got liquid gloss on iOS, which a lot of people are going for. What was your impression of liquid gloss?
I knew it was going to start causing issues because it's so hard to try and make color contrast work when your background's 1,000 different colors. You can't physically test them all. So yeah, it's that, and skeuomorphism was the other one when that became popular a few years ago, and everyone was doing their nice little bubbly buttons that you can't see any outline of them and things like that. Yeah, there's always a trend. It's nearly always Apple that instigates it, and then they correct it later, and they go fix all the accessibility issues they've introduced. Yeah, it's a constant battle, but it's purely because we don't talk to designers about it. And they are the crux of it. We as developers have a lot to do, but it starts at the design end. If the design is not accessible, then your job as a developer is now impossible to make it accessible. So, yeah, and like you said, unfortunately, you can make things very pretty if you're willing to do light grey on light grey. But it's terrible. And even if you're not disabled, if you try and look at it on a phone with bright sunlight, light grey on light grey, you can't tell what's being said, what the words are.
Yeah, and font size is another issue when you get older, and you basically, I've got varifocals now, so I don't know where I'm actually going to read things any longer. But I love that, for example, on Playbooks or on Amazon Kindle, I can actually change the font of a book to whatever I want. And people can do that on the web as well. It always fascinates me how many people think you can control things on the web, but the end user is in control. They can put another font in their browser and you're screwed, basically.
Yeah, if there are any designers in the audience who've spent hours obsessing over the pixel perfect size and the perfect font, hate to tell you, end users are just using user style sheets and putting Arial over the top of anything, or Helvetica or something like that. So, yeah, unfortunately, most of what you do, most end users don't really care. They just want to be able to read the stuff. So yeah, make it pretty, but make it usable first.
Well, I think the problem is that when people use templates, or people use like Vibe Coder to generate their website, which is based on templates, which is based on frameworks all looking the same, and then where the perpetuation of light gray on light gray background becomes a problem because the things get generated for you rather than done. Do you think the problem is also that there is a differentiation between developer and designer, and we actually should have tools that make both of them work together on the same project?
Yeah, That's the key. And it's sad that we don't talk to designers. They sort of chuck something over the fence and you go, I don't know how the hell I'm going to build that, but I'll try. You kind of build it your way and then you go, I had to make this change, that change, and you end up arguing instead of working together and going, especially in accessibility. It's one of those where you go, sorry, this hasn't got enough contrast, and the designer, instead of kicking back, should go, that's a fun challenge then. How can I make it match our corporate colours and still meet contrast requirements? So yeah, I think the whole team, I think it happens a lot in companies. We've had the same problem in our company where we're having to slowly get our claws into the designer because they sit the other side of the fence on product. We're like, no, we want them on our side of the fence, on the developer team, basically. I think it solves a lot of issues that way.
Well, design tools have accessibility tests in them as well. I mean, I worked on the browser developer tools for Chromium, and I put a lot of like checks in there that actually show you where the accessibility issues are. Ironically, we had to make the color picker screen reader compatible as well, which was like a really weird thing because who can't see will pick a color, but screen readers are not only used by people who can't see, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. A lot of use cases of screen readers are people who are using it as a second language. So people will actually, because obviously English is the predominant language, if they're not very strong at English, they will use a screen reader to read the text out to be able to get more information and absorb the information at a rate that's right for them. There's all sorts of reasons. If you've got a cognitive impairment, they can be very useful. They can help you digest a page better. So there's hundreds of reasons someone would use a screen reader. But most of the time it's because they've got a vision impairment.
I wonder, just to add to that, it also tells us how important it is to have in our teams, I think people that can actually have those experiences themselves. Because I think even when we use these dev tools, I always feel like we're only getting so far to actually understanding the experience of, when you're saying there, screen readers, we all think about almost the person that might need the screen reader, and it's more complicated. So it shows how important it is to have representation in the team as well, of people that can say, these dev tools are not covering everything, and here's an issue you might not have thought of, an accessibility issue. So, that's where I kind of went then, was thinking dev tools are great, but it's the people that are writing the code, and it's the people that are, for now anyway, actually using the application. So we need to speak to those people and say, what do you find difficult? How can we solve that problem? So, yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
I want to give you all an idea here where to go in the next few days. There's a company here that is one of our partners, and I was really impressed with them. I wouldn't say it if I wasn't. And it's called PenPot. I just didn't like the name, so I didn't know what they were. But they actually are an open source tool that allows developers and designers to work together on the same project in a collaborative space, much like Notion or those kind of things. But they do a really, really good job in flagging these things while you develop. And I think it's a very interesting thing that I got them together with a company called Locofy, so you can now work in that thing and generate code with an AI backend for them as well. So it's going places, because the collaborative thing, like the designer changing the color and then the developer changing the round corner in CSS to make sure it looks right, so nobody's overriding each other's work, because that's what you normally do. Like the designer comes up with a great color and the developer says green, fine. But in this case, this is a really interesting space. They're going to be in the other hall, and I was really excited about what they do. And it's amazing, having worked on browsers, how much we can do in the browser these days, rather than having to download a tool and have an extra tool to actually go for. Most of my work is done in the browser nowadays, and it's really fun to see how these collaborative tools allow you to build things really quickly.
I think as well, if you do check out PenPot, something I was impressed by was, we're saying about developers and designers almost becoming the same thing. And what we asked the question of, okay, so how do I then take the layout that I've got? How can I see that in some kind of code format? Now, obviously, it's in JSON. But that, to me, said that they're thinking right from the base that it's a design-heavy tool, where you can prototype like you can Figma, like you can Adobe XD, but that you can always go back to your kind of developer mode if you just want to open up the JSON and change your layout in there, right down to the positioning on the canvas. It's going to be a very complex set of JSON, but still, the fact that it's putting the two together, for me, was like, okay, maybe designers and developers can learn from each other, because now there's nothing in their way. So, yeah, it's really exciting. Definitely check it out.
Well, it's interesting that Canvas is the thing to do. I mean, much like Google Sheets went to Canvas because you need 50,000 lines of things scrolling with hardware acceleration, which is kind of hard to do in the DOM. And I remember when I worked for Mozilla, we had an editor called Bespin, because if you name a software a copyrighted name of LucasArts, that's the best idea ever. So that's why that didn't go anywhere, because they sued us to death with it. But we then basically did the same thing. We rendered code on a canvas, and it was really fast and really good, but we had to reinvent everything, copy and paste, highlighting, where is the cursor in the current document. Doing these things in JavaScript is hard as it is now in the range thing, but on Canvas we had to simulate the whole bit just to get the hardware acceleration. So it's going to be interesting in that space what we can do with WebAssembly nowadays, but the interface of Canvas is just a pixel space. It's not anything that renders anything and gives it back to the accessibility tree, right?
Yeah, that, and similarly, I've had a play at trying to have an image sent down the wire and make that a website for fun, because I do weird stuff. And honestly, you appreciate how much work the browser does for you. Like, if you use a button, you've got your focus states, you've already got a click handler, you've got all the things. Having to implement them yourself, you realize we are just standing on the shoulders of people who've done a lot of hard work for us already. And it makes your life so much easier. Use semantic HTML, don't try and reinvent the wheel, honestly. They've done all the hard work. And I try and tell people that in my team all the time, and then they'll create a new component and I have to go and fix it. But, we try.
I mean, last month or 2 months ago, I can't remember time anymore because of all the planning of this thing, we had an an accessibility and AI day where we had like lots of experts on accessibility and talk about how AI intersects with the world of accessibility and how it actually is at loggerheads at time. Some people have been whining and complaining that they haven't been invited. I'm not mentioning any names here, but it was interesting to see one of the things. It was great to have friends of mine who are blind or visually impaired back again that I worked with in the past to have on the show. And what cracked me up the most was that all of them were wearing these smart glasses by Ray-Ban, which I thought were only for influencers and other weird people. But actually, a lot of blind people have these glasses because it means they can actually tell them what they're looking at. So they look at a menu and it reads it out to them. And normally this was specialized hardware that's really expensive. But now with the I don't know, $400 thing that the Ray-Bans are connected to your phone, they don't have to put their phone out. Because for us to hold a phone onto like a scooter to scan the QR code is not an issue. For a blind person to find the QR code, bit of a trickier thing with their phone while they're trying to hold onto the scooter. But with the smart glasses, it was much, much easier. I was just shocked that something that I thought was so frivolous and unnecessary is really helping people.
Yeah, there's loads of instances of stuff like that. In fact, go back to your keyboard. We've got someone right there using their keyboard as we're doing this talk. And obviously, that came as an aid for someone who was blind to be able to write letters. Everything we create for accessibility tends to then help everybody else. But on the flip side, we're now in a weird place where we're creating frivolous things, like you said, like the Ray-Ban sunglasses, where you can spy on everyone without them knowing. And people are building interesting technology on top of it. I saw an app where, for someone who is totally blind, it would let them pick out an outfit. So they are now more coordinated than me, and I've got no excuse anymore, because the app will tell them, yes, that top goes with those bottoms. Yet again, seems like a very trivial thing, but these are massive impacts on people's lives, knowing that they look good in public.
I think that's something to remember, that every time I did an accessibility enhancement of something, everybody else benefited as well. Like, I mean, you go, for example, the curb of the road on the side, that it's lower for wheelchair people. Now, if you have a pram, like when you get your kid, it's easier to get up there as well. When Photoshop allowed you to were actually sued because you couldn't use the keyboard to move an outline. They actually now, you can move it pixel by pixel, which you could never do with a mouse beforehand. So that was a necessity for an accessibility need that is there. I wonder if that's something for you and some for the audience as well. But I always preferred the German term for accessibility because it's Barrierefreiheit. It means lack of barriers rather than accessible. Because making things accessible to everybody, independent of disability, is impossible. Sometimes you do something that's good for somebody hard of hearing, that's really bad for a blind person or somebody with dyslexic person. But the lack of barrier thing I find much more interesting because that's all you can do. You can remove barriers and hope for the best rather than like making the perfect accessible solution.
Yeah, I've said it before, and I cringe when I say it, but if you say, I've made my app accessible, that means nothing. You've made it more accessible, maybe, or maybe you've complied with WCAG, which is the guidelines on how to make things accessible, but there is no such thing. There is that wider variety of disabilities. You can't possibly make everything fully accessible, but you can make it as accessible as possible, and I absolutely love that term. Removing barriers is a far better way of looking at it, just leveling the playing field. Make sure people can enjoy your work. That's why I find it exciting.
Who would have thought that the Germans removed barriers one time? It's weird.
We won't go into that, yeah.
I love that example as well, that somebody built a smart glasses that for hard of hearing people. So instead of doing the like just detection, it shows subtitles of people speaking to you live. And this is bloody cool. I mean, this is built into PowerPoint, by the way, if you've never seen that. You can turn it, when you give a presentation with PowerPoint, you can do live subtitles, and you can basically see them in the language, and you can also choose another language, and it shows subtitles in the other language that you're speaking. That's built into PowerPoint for free. And this is really cool. I mean, to a degree, it's also a privacy issue, because, I mean, I would have loved to know that his glasses are transcribing what I'm saying, but it's a $300 project by somebody just on their free time, and I really, really love that idea, because subtitles are a big thing, and the whole generation of newer kids nowadays use subtitles so they can actually read things on the train, rather than just like us using them when we don't know what the song in the background is, or when we can't comprehend the Scottish actor.
I mean, I'm getting older now. My hearing's going, but I'm not admitting it to myself yet. So I have subtitles on all the time, because TV shows seem to have decided that the volume of music needs to be as high as the voice of the actors. I can never tell what people are saying, so I've got them on all the time. But yeah, again, an accessibility feature that we probably all use, like you said, on the train, in the library, or if you learn another language, it's a great way to put the subtitles on in your language and listen to the spoken language. Doesn't work for me because I'm a Brit and we don't learn languages well, but for other people it works.
I mean, I was going to say, Graham, that we've both got a couple of regional accents, and ironically, being native English speakers, we're sometimes the hardest to understand, and that actually those subtitles, it's going to be useful for you have a thick you're from Manchester, right? So or no, in the north. Oh, sorry. Okay, somewhere in the north. I'll go with that. Yes, up north. Yes. That can be quite hard to understand. And you said a Scottish accent as well. It's about removing barriers, right? And if you're finding it difficult and you've got that added stress of now trying to understand what the person's saying, just go with subtitles every time. I mean, the amount of times we've done video content and we now, you subtitle it every time. But the amount of times that you just forget that little step of, oh, well, I don't need to subtitle it because I can understand. Again, we're going back to, thinking about yourself. I can understand it, but then I'm a native English speaker, and I'm probably speaking too fast for one or two people in the audience. So if I could put subtitles right now, that would be great. So maybe that's the next step. Everybody go and get yourself a pair of these. Maybe that's the key. Then we can all understand each other without barriers.
Well, I mean, the interesting bit is that all the streaming companies are now trying to save money on not buying subtitles or paying people to create subtitles and captions, but generate them with AI. And it was just a hilarious anime show that turned out to be German subtitles being like cooking recipes, because ChatGPT was just imagining things. And I mean, that's the worry as well. I mean, I had that with my partner. She set up our laptop to be only in German, which I didn't know. And basically, I looked at Netflix, and the description of the movies was in German and absolutely atrocious. So I emailed friends of mine on Netflix and told them what the hell is going on. Like, they should do better. And they're like, what do you mean? We don't translate the transcriptions. And it was just Windows doing it rather than Netflix itself. And I'm like, okay, that was on me, because back then I worked at Microsoft. But it was just like hoping for the best when it's automatically translated, especially when you use the free tier, not necessarily a good idea. But yeah, it's funny when Pride comes in. There's a great Scottish comedy show called Still Game. It's pensioners on the outskirts of Glasgow, and the subtitles are written in Scottish as well.
You'll find that a lot of the time, yeah, that a lot of people from Scotland will write in Scottish, right? And if you read it as it's written, you can perfectly understand it. But as Brits, sometimes we might need subtitles. So it's just the way it is to understand somebody from Scotland. Yeah.
This is an interesting one about PDFs and accessibility output. I mean, you work with a lot of partners and companies, and I guess you have tons of PDFs to work with. And I mean, every operating system allows you now to save as PDF, but these are rubbish, aren't they?
Oh yeah, but out of the box they are terrible. The problem with PDF is there's a certain way to mark them up to make things accessible. So if you just say, oh, I'll convert my web page to PDF, it will be absolutely atrocious. It will just be words, no landmarks, nothing for someone. So I need to back up. Someone using a screen reader relies on things like headings, alt text and things like that to find their way around a document and work out what's on stuff. You won't get any of that out of the box when you just go, oh, convert to PDF. And I know a lot of companies do it. I'm not saying that we do it in our company. I keep rallying against it. But lots of companies do it, and it is a big problem because marking up PDFs is time-consuming and hard, and is still something that isn't done. Top tip, though, don't put on your CV that you do accessibility, because then every single PDF remediation company in the world becomes your best friend, and you get 5,000 requests a day on LinkedIn. So there's obviously a lot of money in PDF remediation. That might be my next business. I don't know.
Which is, yeah, it's interesting because it was just for print. I mean, we have other formats like EPUB, which is an open W3C format that we just use for books, but we should use for documents as well. There's LaTeX, of course, and then there's all the LLMs want Markdown, which is the most moronic output there because it's not even standardized. But everybody's going crazy on Markdown right now, and it fascinates me to no end. Like it's really the amount of parsers you find for Markdown and encoders for Markdown that all think Markdown is a different thing. We have standards, use those. But okay, who am I telling these to?
I don't know. I had to learn Markdown to be able to write on Dev 2, and it took me forever. I don't know why we like it as a format as devs. There's something wrong with us. Maybe we like pain. I don't know.
Oh, we definitely like pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that I was thinking about then when we were talking about the PDF stuff and everything is, if you do have PDFs in your company, if you also have the web version and it's correctly marked up, you are still okay. So don't worry about, oh crap, we've got 5,000 PDFs that we need to get out the door and now get remediated, because the law's recently changed. You now have to be accessible if you're in the EU. As long as you've got a comparable web version with the same content in it that is marked up correctly, you're still okay. That's one of the sort of things that's within W3C and WCAG is, as long as there is another medium that is accessible, it doesn't technically matter if one isn't. So that's an interesting one that helps a lot of companies out because they go, oh dear, this is going to cost us a fortune.
I mean, it's pretty good that all browsers render PDF now by default. I remember when linking to a PDF meant like Adobe PDF Reader came up or Foxit Reader or whatever, and like everything crashed on your machine. And nowadays, like with PDF.js and these kind of things, we all do it in the browser directly, so it's not the issue anymore. I want to switch gears a bit to a proof that there is no God. Which actually is that like this whole thing that came out lately, that there is like AI-powered VTubers earning millions with fully virtual personalities. And it seems like we spend a lot of time recording all this, captioning all this, doing content, doing research. It shows that we didn't this time, but normally we do. And we actually put all our effort in, and then this AI slop is basically making tons and tons of money. And I don't know, I mean, am I not understanding this? Am I old? Am I shouting at clouds?
I mean, we're at a strange time, aren't we, really? Where I think, I feel a little bit like we're at the point where we're just throwing everything at the wall. You know, we're seeing what AI can do in every context imaginable. And we're almost thinking it's the solution for problems that don't exist. Like, I like to think, when I watch a video, I go, oh, there's a person. I don't think to myself, oh, I wish that wasn't a person. I wish they were virtual. It's not a problem. It doesn't exist. I like to speak to real people and see content from real people, but we're still saying, I wonder if AI can do that. So I feel like we're at the point where I'm really hoping that we see this kind of thing for a few years, and maybe there is a need or a purpose and a place for it. you know, but I really hope that we don't just fall into, maybe we don't want to go too deep into it, but that dead internet theory of it's just AI making content for other AI and then AI indexing it and making more content on the back of it, and none of us are ever speaking to each other. But maybe that's just me being an optimist. Who here sort of would actually say, I don't care. I don't care if it's a person. Who would say, I'm quite happy watching everyone on YouTube being virtual? Good, the right answer, nobody fell for it. Yeah, because I'd like to think that it's the reason you're all here, right? To connect with other developers and to speak to real people, not just listen to an AI-generated script being read by one of those really annoying AI voices that you think is real for a second, and then it says a really simple word really weirdly in a way that no human has ever said. And you think, that was a British accent. He definitely knows how to say the word world or something. So I would like to think, anyway, that this is just going to be something in the corner of the internet for some need, but it's not really, for me, it's solving a problem that doesn't exist.
But then you got things like this. The Velvet Sundown, 1.1 million monthly listeners. That band doesn't exist. It's an AI band. And nobody, on Deezer it actually is flagged as AI generated, on Spotify it's not. And there's a big in-depth article about it as well, where it actually explains that how they also have an AI generated images of the band on an Instagram account, and they're on TikTok with like animated band sequences that never existed. And it seems like people are okay with this. But then again, people were happy with pop music for years and years as well. So I mean, I remember one time the Annoying Frog was on the top 10 charts in England for 10 weeks. So yeah. But it's fascinating to see, like, as a band, I mean, you used to play in a band. I used to sing when I was 14 and angry. But we didn't do it for the fame. But if you really do it for the fame and the money, this is depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's maybe something that, you know, technology has always been something that maybe or it feels like it separates us from the human experience. And I think about, I used to play in a metal band. And if anyone knows metal, the double bass pedal, very, very fast, right? Now, you can use something on your drum that is a sample that just plays. And it's absolutely no buffering. That always impressed me, where I thought, no buffering live, none. But it's effectively meaning you can just tap your drum, like, so your feet are just going, but it's sounding like this really intense, heavy drum, because it's just a sample being played. Some people will even do it where they just hit one drum, and the sample goes, and they were never respected by the musicians that were like, I don't use those things, I can do it all myself. So I feel like it's the same thing, is that it's okay to use technology and to cheat a little bit, create music rather than write it, or create code rather than write it, create applications rather than build them yourself. But maybe that's what we need, is a little label somewhere saying completely human generated. You know those things people put in the footer of their website? Everybody puts the same thing. Made with a heart in city. Yeah, made with love in London, whatever. Okay, thanks for telling me that you made it with love. I'm glad. But maybe we actually need that now. Say, not made by a computer, not made by an LLM, actually made by a human being. Maybe that now makes more sense, made with love by a human being. Right? Maybe that's what we need, a disclaimer.
Well, there's discussions about this, about watermarking and all the kind of thing as well, what was generated by AI to make to work around deepfakes. The Danish government now gave people copyright about their appearances, so basically deepfakes become a felony. And that's a very interesting way of tackling that problem, because, yeah, I mean, there's this like scam to call elderly people and say like your nephew is in jail and needs the bail money, and nowadays with like 10 seconds of audio recording I can simulate the voice of that nephew as well. And that's something that we have a real issue with right now in terms of security. So we're getting there. But it's interesting how people are actually using prompt injection into things to fake bits about, and I don't know if the wireless is working anymore, but there's this whole researcher paper right now that showed that people are putting prompts inside papers to basically invisible, and you see the same thing in when people apply for jobs and resumes, people put like hidden text in there to actually tell the LLM to say that's the person to hire. And it kind of works at the moment, much like it worked in Google SEO in 1997 or something. But it's interesting to see that this is cropping up everywhere right now, that people hide AI prompts in bits to actually get, if it's indexed by an AI, it shows different results.
There was a really interesting video I watched the other week where someone had worked out how to encode sounds within an audio track that meant it could activate people's Amazon Echo. So it sounded just like music, but because AI analyzes it in a certain way, it could actually find a way to manipulate it to actually let it hear Alexa and stuff like that. And so I find it incredible that we've got this stage where we can now manipulate things. There's a guy who managed to buy a car for $1 in America. Yeah. He managed to manipulate the AI that was talking to him about buying this car, saying, no, you're going to give me more discount. And eventually it gave him the car for $1. You know, so yeah, it's a fun time. You might be able to get some good deals if you play hard.
I love when Alexa came out. There was a TV show where they basically said, like, Alexa, buy a Princess Castle something, and everybody listening on television to the thing who had an Alexa had ordered that thing. So Amazon had like thousands of orders of that castle that they had to rescind because it wasn't the proper order. But it's interesting to see that like sounds in the background can now trigger things. I always did that in the past, like, okay, Google, and see how many people in the audience start their phones going off. That was a fun thing to do as well. But
hey Siri. Nope. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
well.
Didn't work.
Hey Cortana. Oh wait, nobody uses that.
Yeah.
So. But there, it's interesting how these prompt injections are getting more and more. I think one of my favorite when it comes to sound is there is a CVE that I forgot about, and Dan was showing like, you got to be kidding me. There is a CVE and security problem from Janet Jackson. Had a song in her Rhythm Nation 1999 album that had in the production a certain frequency that was the frequency offsetting the frequency of the spinning hard drive. So when you played that MP3 on old PCs, it basically shut them down. It was a blue screen of death.
That's an evil developer that's done that.
Took them ages to find the thing. And the MP3 was basically, for all the streaming services, changed the pitch a bit to make sure that those machines don't crash anymore. But this is the only CVE that I know that has an MP3 attached to it.
This is where with great power comes great responsibility, because I feel like this is the kind of thing that when you're speaking to somebody that's not a developer, they hear about these stories. Did you hear about Janet Jackson? Did you hear about the Alexa? And you say, I promise they're doing loads of good things. We spoke about all the accessibility tools that people build, browsers, etc. But it's the evil geniuses. It's the evil geniuses out there that give us a bad rep. But at the same time, you sort of want to fist bump them and go, that's quite cool, though, yeah. But don't. But
well, this wasn't on purpose. They just didn't know that basically it was a sub sound that was almost inaudible, but it was so low that it offset the spinning of the hard drive. That's why the machine crashed.
Oh wow. Okay. So yeah, maybe I'm being too harsh then, but still. There's some evil geniuses out there, yeah.
It reminds me also that when at the beginning sequence of... come again? What? We're about on time? Okay. There was also the beginning of Big Bang Theory, where they basically had that really flashing fast movies. That crashed QuickTime at the beginning as well, because it was too many images in the stream at the same time.
They knew what they were doing. The Big Bang Theory, it might seem like it's just little... It's very clever, though, isn't it? They knew what they were doing, I'm sure. Wow. I think
cool.
That's... Yeah. About time, I think.
So I guess it's about time. That was WeAreDevelopers Live. We didn't go through all of them. We never go through all of them, but you can look them all up later on. There's a link archive as well. We'll be back here at like 3 o'clock for another Coffee with Developer session, and in between there is a DJ that actually plays only vinyl and tapes because he's old school.
And Liran, Chris Liran as well is going to be joining you at, I believe, 2:30 or 2 o'clock. I'm losing track. 2 o'clock, I believe.
Yeah.
So Liran's going to be up here shortly.
Yeah, Liran's going to do security. So if you come in later, there's an interactive session where you all can play along, and it's going to be 0 day at day 0, where we learn about security problems and how to spot them. So if you want to go back cleverer and make sure your company doesn't get hacked, he's the man to help you out. And you can not win anything, but you can win knowledge. So that's it from us. Thanks very much.
Thank you.